President Donald Trump just admitted why he's going to let the post office die. Now, of course, as we all know, the U.S. Postal Service is in a lot of trouble. Even prior to coronavirus, they were barely operating in the black, thanks to having to, of course, pre-fund their retirement benefits, something that no other organization or businesses has to do. Now, with the economic recession, a lot of businesses being closed, they end up getting a lot less revenue than they used to. And with that, post office is running out of money. They need a federal bailout. Now, understand that the post office is not normally funded by the federal government. They're set to be a standalone operation that funds itself through the sale of stamps and things like that. Well, because of that pre-funding requirement, they're running deeply in the red now, especially with the loss of business. And so they need that bailout. And yet, Donald Trump, not a fan of the post office. In fact, here he is talking about why he's okay with not funding the post office.
So they want $3.5 billion for universal mail-in voting for the country, where you have hundreds of millions of voters. They can't do a little race with 20,000 people. Now they want to take it countrywide mail-in voting. It's going to be the greatest fraud in the history of elections. When you always talk about Russia, China, Iran on voting, your biggest problem is going to be with the Democrats, not with China, Russia, and Iran. Your biggest problem is going to be with the Democrats. They turned down this bill because they want radical left agenda items that nobody in their right mind would approve. So they want $25 billion for the post office. They want $3.5 billion for universal mailing, $3.5 billion. And the bill's not going to happen because they don't even want to talk about it, because we can't give them the kind of ridiculous things that they want that have nothing to do with the China virus. It has nothing at all to do with China virus, much of what they're asking for. It'll be the greatest rigged election in history. It'll be the greatest fraud ever perpetrated, other than perhaps what they did to my campaign, where they spied on my campaign, President Obama, Biden, and everybody else.
So basically, he just admitted, yeah, I'll let the post office die so I can stop mail-in voting. Politics. That's what it is. So that he, doesn't run the risk of losing. Now, let's make this clear, right? Mail-in ballots are not susceptible to widespread voter fraud. There's no actual evidence of that. In reality, studies have shown that fraud is actually exceedingly rare in elections, especially in places where there are mail-in voting. And we do that in several states. Now, that's despite, of course, fear-mongering headlines that detailed a few high-profile cases. And certainly, when you try to argue this with conservatives online, they'll go and cherry-pick that and be like, oh, see, look at that. We've got one case of voter fraud. That means we should get rid of all of it. But let me give you the numbers, right? So now, the rate of voting fraud overall in the U.S. elections is between 0.00004% and 0.0009%, according to a 2017 study by the Brennan Center for Justice. A voter fraud database collated by Arizona State University between 2000 and 2012 found just 491 cases of postal ballot fraud out of the hundreds of millions of votes. That is, of course, a very, very infinitesimally small number. And a Washington Post review of the 2016 election found just one proven case of postal voting fraud. Of course, right? Now, Oregon, by the way, is a state that has held postal elections since 2000, and they only have reported about 14 fraudulent votes attempted by mail. So it is very, very small, infinitesimally small number of voter fraud that actually happens through mail and in general, right? But to say that, of course, that it is a massive, widespread problem, you're essentially repeating conspiracy theories that are made up to disenfranchise people, especially during a pandemic. But again, I'm going to show you Donald Trump. He's going to be on CNBC, and he's going to repeat this nonsense. Take a look.
They want $3.5 billion for the mail-in votes. Okay, universal mail-in ballots. 3.5 trillion. They want $25 billion for the post office. Now they need that money in order to have the post office work, so it can take all of these millions and millions of ballots. Now, in the meantime, they aren't getting there. By the way, those are just two items. But if they don't get those two items, that means you can't have universal mail-in voting.
And again, he openly admits that, if you don't have the post office, can't do mail-in voting. I guess I'll kill the post office then. Look, this is why, in all actuality, among some of the other things, but the Republicans decided to take their ball and go home on the stimulus. They've left 25 to 28 million people in danger of losing their homes. But unfortunately, Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about it. All he cares about is whether or not he wins. He's afraid that he's going to lose. And so what's he going to do? He's going to sabotage an election where many millions of additional mail-in ballots are expected to be sent out by making sure the post office can't do the very thing it was designed to do, deliver the mail on time. And that's it. I mean, all he has to do is to make it so that the post office cannot function correctly in the way that it should, right? And that could lead to a delay in ballots, not only getting delivered, as we have seen before, to people's residences so they can fill them out, or getting those ballots mailed in to their proper place. All you have to delay is just a little bit until the election is over and those votes no longer count. This is all while allies of Donald Trump. And I remember doing a segment on this, saying, vote in person, vote in person. You got to vote in person. You can't vote by mail. Nope, terrible. Vote in person, vote in person, vote in person. I wonder why they're pushing that. I mean, it's look, nice little wink and a nod, right? To make sure that millions of people are disenfranchised, while, of course, hardcore Trump supporters are able to turn out. That's what this is. I mean, people's votes, they don't get there in time because you don't have the mail infrastructure anymore, then they're not going to count. It's such a disgusting plan. That said, I do hope that it will backfire. I mean, the fact that Trump and Republicans are going after the post office, there's a lot of hubris in this, right? Because understand that when you go to the post office, you're going after the most popular program in the country. It has a 91% approval rating. You're going to go after the post office? You're going to say, no, I'm going to break the post office so that I can win. That is a terrible idea. I mean, not just like terrible in the fact that you're, going to try to eliminate a vital service to this country, but you're also doing it against an incredibly popular vital service to the country in an election year. No, people are not interested in that at all. At all. It is a incredibly dumb, stupid dick move.